Here's a question for you. Have you ever been in a relationship that made you constantly feel stressed out, angry, drained, and exhausted? Just plain sad at times, confused, or anxious and depressed? If you answered yes to a few, or sadly, all of those, then you are most likely in a relationship with a narcissist or someone with narcissistic personality disorder. So the caveat here is that it is regularly that you feel like this, like not just on the odd occasion. We all have times when we feel stressed out by somebody or resentful or a bit drained, but that does not make them a narcissist. If you are feeling this regularly or even constantly with certain relationships in your life, then that is an indicator. So that's what we're going to dive into today, how to actually identify whether someone is a narcissist or they're just kind of, a Debbie Downer or a glass half empty type of person. So I'm going to dive in and I'm going to share with you exactly how to identify that and also look at the behaviors of those people. So before I unpack that for you, I just want to make it clear that I am not a clinical psychologist and I am not a psychiatrist, but I'm a person who has personal experience with being in relationships with people with NPD, Narcissistic Personality Disorder, classified as also a narcissist. And I have done a lot of research, basically to help me navigate that chaos and that drama and keep my mental health and my emotional health and even my physical health intact. Okay, let's go. So, we are all on a spectrum, okay, basically in everything in life, but in terms of selfishness, a selfishness scale, we all are on there somewhere. At the low end, we may be, a people pleaser. At the high end, we are a narcissist, okay? But generally, we fall into the middle where we are occasionally selfish, we are occasionally attention seeking, we are occasionally overconfident. But the difference here is that it's occasionally. We normally grow out of this over time. We are aware that we are being like that, and we can make adjustments to rectify or smooth that out. With narcissists, they cannot do that, okay, because there's an extreme self-focus, and you'll hear that word extreme regularly while we're sharing this. And they have an overly high, aka extreme, concept of self-importance. And as I said, we're all on a spectrum. It becomes a problem when it affects your life or the life of the people around you. And that's what narcissism is, right? It's quite destructive. And we're going to go through that now. So I'm going to share with you the 9 traits that clinical psychologists and psychiatrists say and measure as someone who has narcissistic personality disorder. And then, most importantly, how these traits show up in their behavior that affects the people around them. So, during this time, you may even find that certain things ring a bell for you, that maybe you have 5 or more of these traits. And if that's the case, there's no judgment here. It's just good to be aware of it, and then you can make some choices. And for those of you that have light bulb moments with the people in your life about this, this is also so that you can make some choices and also avoid getting into these relationships in the first place. So Psychologists and psychiatrists diagnose several different mental disorders actually using a DSMR test. And in this particular case, the traits or criteria for narcissistic personality disorder are envy, fantasies, specialness, exploitation, arrogance, entitlement, admiration, grandiosity, and the kicker, lack of empathy. We're going to unpack those now. So, envy. Like, we've all had a little bit of the green-eyed monster, myself included, but it doesn't last long. It is very infrequent, and we kind of rationalize it away to ourselves, and we can say, hey, like, look on the bright side, or they did work for that, or we can use our emotions and mental state to regulate ourselves and sort of get out of that pretty quickly. This is not the case with people with narcissistic personality disorder. That all of these traits are constant, okay? And depending upon how many traits, if someone has 5 traits, they're still classified with NPD, but they would be nowhere near as chaotic or destructive as someone who has all 9, okay? So again, it just depends on that. And it also depends upon the intensity of the individual themselves. So two people could have 6 traits each and the same 6 traits, but the intensity to which it is presented can also vary because we are all individuals, all right? But the important thing to note are these are the 9 traits, and 5 or more is clinical NPD. So they believe everybody is envious of them. Okay. So, say, for example, they started a new workplace and they expect, because they have such high opinions of themselves, that everyone will see how fabulous they are. And if someone doesn't immediately find them so fabulous, they immediately think that's because the person is jealous of them. They also envy others a lot. So, if they have a group of friends and the friends got a promotion and they didn't, they tend to feel like their successes are diminished by someone else's success. So instead of a rising tide lifting all boats, they only want their own boat and they kind of hope that the rest of the boats sink. Okay, fantasies. So, fantasies, we all have them, right? Or daydreams. So, I daydream that I will be able to live in Tuscany for a year and make my own pasta and go down to the markets and, cook the freshest produce and read and, draw and all sorts of things. And there's nothing wrong with that. The fantasies that I'm talking about are, again, constant and extreme. So it can be things like being famous or well known for something. It can be that they are the CEO of a business. So they don't want to be the employee, they have to be the boss. It could be something along the lines of having somebody who's a romantic partner and they are whisked off to different places in first class or planes that are private. They're spoiled. They're held up on a pedestal. It's these sorts of things. And again, they are consistent. It's not just something that, crosses your mind every now and then. Specialness. So they really believe they were, probably born in the wrong time and they should have been a king or a queen or a prince or a princess. They are special and they expect everyone else to see how special they are. So they prioritize their own needs and ideas. They dismiss other people's ideas and contributions. So in the home, it could look like, you have made a meal and they don't really say much about it. But if they make the same meal or a meal in general, they expect everyone to fall over themselves to say how great the meal was. It could look like something in the workplace where you are part of a team and you do a great project or presentation, and the narcissist will talk about how important their role was and basically say nothing about anybody else. And of course, when you think you're the center of the universe, you steer the conversation back to yourself constantly. Exploitation. So narcissists have quite a few acquaintance slash occasional friend relationships where the person doesn't really know them all that well. They just know them in certain social contexts. So it could be the person they meet up for coffee every now and then. It could be the person that, uh, is a member of a club that they visit every now and then. Whatever the relationship is, it's superficial because they can't connect to people. They lack genuine, deep relationships. The people that are exposed to narcissists for significant periods of time, like family members or uh, a boss is a narcissist and you spend a lot of time at work, or, your child is a narcissist. So significant periods of time result in people understanding what the narcissist is really about. They see underneath the sort of pleasant mask, the kind of mask they use in public. Their public face is very different to their private face. So they have very superficial public relationships to get that admiration and praise and to gain status and influence. So they tend to help out those quote unquote less fortunate so that those people will, have them on that pedestal that they so need to be on, and they can get the admiration and the thanks and the praise from someone that they see is inferior to them in some way. They also seek out people that they think are special because they're special, and they want to hang out with people that are, not the average person. They love to get the shared status and influence because they usually can't get their own. So they like to try and form relationships with people of higher status than them to get, that praise or admiration by association. But regardless of the relationships, whether it's a one with someone that spends significant time with them or just the superficial sort of coffee person, they have to have a benefit. So their relationships are transactional. They have to be getting something out of it, and it's admiration and praise or status. Arrogance is exactly what it says. They are condescending. They think that they are the bee's knees or that their shit don't stink, so to speak. And they show it in their face and in their attitude. They're the kind of people that might go to a restaurant and say that their coffee was supposed to be 80 degrees and it was only 76, and they want to talk to the manager about it. They're the kind of people who have kind of like a disdainful attitude toward other people. And it can look like, a cat's bum face or eye rolling or huffing or that sort of thing. Entitlement. So this kind of stacks up on the previous traits that we just talked about. So if you think that you are very special and unique, you think that you need special treatment and that you're entitled to it. So rules are for suckers, rules are for other people. Normal rules don't apply to me because, hey, I'm not normal, I'm special. And as a result of being so special, I have different treatment and I deserve different treatment. And rules don't apply. I can come and go. I can do this, do that, do the other thing. And I can also cross boundaries. You may not like me dropping in at 5 a.m. on my way to tennis, but I feel like it. And because you're my friend or my child or, whoever, I'm doing it. And why are you getting offended or annoyed by it? So boundary crossing is one of the big red flags too. Like not one phone call, 12 phone calls a day. Not one lift to a doctor's appointment, but you're the one that always has to take me to the doctor. So extremism again showing up. Their need for admiration. So it's a cycle. So they always need admiration. It's kind of like an addiction. Then they seek that admiration through, doing something or saying something. Then they receive that attention, and then it reinforces their need for attention. So think of it like a bucket that has 3 or 4 holes in it. In order to keep it full, it needs constant topping up. Otherwise, it may run out, and that is unthinkable. Grandiosity. So, because of this superior belief, their entitlement, they really paint themselves as achieving things that really are not reflective of reality. So, as a silly example, but I think it proves the point, a narcissist who makes, say, a casserole thinks that their casserole is the best and that Jamie Oliver would struggle to even come close to that casserole. In other settings, it could be that they made a sandwich for their husband, and because he doesn't fall down onto his knees and, praise them, they get offended. Or they may think that their particular party was the best. Whatever it is on a grand scale, and it's usually not reflective of the actual reality. Could be someone at work that, presents a file or a project, and they go on and on and on about it for weeks, saying how fabulous it was, how much work it was. And it's kind of just the standard that everybody does. But in their mind of grandiose delusions, theirs is perfection. Lack of empathy. This one is really, I find, the saddest, because they cannot think about other people's feelings and needs, because the whole of their entirety is about their own feelings and needs, and yours don't count. And as a result, they can't have deep, meaningful relationships, even though deep down I think they want them. People with NPD cannot, because they do not have the bandwidth for their, other people's needs and feelings, because theirs takes up their whole psyche. So you can imagine the more time you spend with them, and the people that spend the most time with them are significant others, like romantic partners or family, the more difficult it is, the more chaos reigns because of those traits. Okay. And the lack of empathy is one of the most foundational and the most destructive to relationships. So, yeah, it's unconscious oftentimes, and genuinely they are surprised when you turn around and say, hey, that really hurt me. But this leads me into the next section, which is, with these traits, now that you know them, this list or criteria of narcissistic personality disorder traits, I also call the run the fuck away list. So now that you know them, you may not be able to run from the current ones, but I do want to give you that list so that you don't fall into a relationship in the future. So it gives you a bit of a roadmap. And part of that roadmap is, well, okay, if these are the traits, what are the behaviors? Like, how does this look like in real life? Okay, so how do narcissists treat people then? There are several behaviors which I want to go through so that you, again, can understand and also see perhaps and reflect on whether these are behaviors that you display in combination with those traits. And it's all good in the hood. There is no judgment from me if you think, oh my goodness, like I've got quite a few of those traits and I do these behaviors. There is help and there is hope to go and see a clinical psychologist or get your GP to refer you to a psychiatrist. I always believe everything is figure outable, and if there is a genuine willingness, there is a way. All right, so let's have a look at the other people in your life. Love bombing the narcissistic people in your life is the first one. And this is overwhelming you with affection. So it doesn't have to be just romantic, although oftentimes it's seen in the romantic partnership. It is also to do with any relationship, right? Whether it's friendship or family, it's this overwhelming sense of I see you and I love you and you're really special to me. And the goal of it is to create an emotional bond, right? Even though they actually don't have that in a genuine sense, they want it from you. And the effect is to make you feel special, to create that bond. Gaslighting. This technique is about making you doubt your own mind, what your own eyes tell you, what your perceptions tell you. It's kind of like when something happens, they deny it. They say, that never happened. And then when you present facts, they still deny it. They double down. It's the person who will say the sun is black when you know that it is yellow, right? They are committed to it. They will not budge on it. And it's to confuse you and destabilize you so that you start doubting yourself. The devaluation. This is like the belittling. And again, it can happen in any setting. It could be a boss that says, oh my God, you finally handed something in on time. Or, wow, after all that effort, that's what you've produced. It could be belittling your partner. Of course, you wouldn't think of me like that for Valentine's Day, like my friend so and so. And it can be very extreme and hurtful. It just depends on how many traits they have and the extremity or intensity of those traits. And they belittle people to maintain control, kind of like don't get ahead of yourself and don't feel, don't get up and feel yourself, feel that you're pretty good because they don't want you leaving. They want you at their beck and call, and it's to maintain control and make you feel like you're trapped. Triangulation. So this involves other people. So they get their kind of cronies or their gang to create conflict in your life or to gang up on you, to give you that sense of insecurity, like you're it's the David and Goliath situation, right? Particularly if you are challenging them on something, they want to get their uh, cronies, or flying monkeys is another term that you might hear, to bandy around them and harass you or freeze you out. Projection. This is a deflecting game here. So if they have done something wrong, they are certainly never going to admit it or take accountability for it. In their mind, because they're perfect and special, they really don't see that they ever do anything wrong. Okay? So they project. As I said, even if you have all the receipts and all the facts, they will not pick up what you're putting down. They will blame you. They will blame someone else if they can't blame you. And the whole point of it is to get you to question your own choices. Like, did I overreact? That sort of thing. And then the last one is the silent treatment. So this is withdrawing affection and attention away from you. It's to punish you. So instead of reaching out and saying, hey, like I'm a bit concerned about this, or I was a bit offended when you said this, instead of verbalizing and processing and trying to work out a solution, because they don't have that self-awareness, they throw a tantrum and a sulk and they punish you. And oftentimes you don't even know why. But because they're so highly sensitive to not getting their own way and so highly sensitive to any sort of feedback, it doesn't even have to be criticism. It can just be simple feedback like, oh, listen, we were delayed watching that musical because you were late. That's just a fact. they will fly into a rage or do the silent treatment. And the whole point of that is to make you feel lonely and abandoned. So now we've looked at the 9 traits, 5 or more are clinically diagnosed as NPD, Narcissistic Personality Disorder. And we've looked at the 6 main behaviours that result from these traits. And if you have someone in your life that you now think, oh my goodness, that's what's wrong. I couldn't figure it out. I didn't know what to do. I've used all the tools at my disposal, but wow, now I've got relief because I know it's not really me. I know that this person has narcissistic personality disorder. I hope that you have had those ahas and that you can use that list of traits and also behaviors to navigate forward in life and maybe make some decisions about the people that you currently have. And as I said previously, if you think, wow, I actually have 5 or more of those traits, that's all good because at least you're aware enough to watch this video and now reach out to a clinical psychologist or get your GP to refer you to a specialist with this, because there are proportions of people with NPD that have been able to manage this through commitment and self-awareness. So now that we know these traits and behaviors, the next video I'm going to walk you through is what to do now. Now that you know, what do you do? But in between times, remember, let's make the rest of our life the best of our life.